Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Luna Base, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath him. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from here, its surface dotted with the lights of 12 billion people living their daily lives. Jake had been protecting this view for 15 years and nothing had ever threatened it. "Captain," called Zara Thompson from her console, "I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Jake walked over to her station. Zara was the best intelligence officer in the human fleet, and she never called something strange unless it really was. "What do you see?" "Multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Big ones. Really big." Zara's fingers danced across her controls. "Sir, these ships are massive, bigger than anything in our databases." Jake felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "How many?" 47 confirmed. "More still arriving." Zara looked up at him, her face pale. "Captain, these aren't any ships I recognize. The design is completely unknown." Across the solar system, alarms began sounding on every human military base. The peaceful afternoon was about to end forever. Dr. Lisa Park was in her office at the Galactic Council building in Geneva when her communicator buzzed. As Earth's representative to the galaxy's governing body, she received hundreds of messages each day, but this one made her blood freeze. "Lisa, this is Admiral Kyle Brooks. We have multiple unknown contacts entering the solar system. Large fleet. Hostile intent suspected. Please prepare emergency evacuation protocols." Lisa's hands shook as she accessed her computer. The emergency protocols had been written decades ago, but no one ever thought they would be used. Earth was the diplomatic heart of human space. It was supposed to be safe. She began typing rapidly, sending messages to human colonies across the galaxy. If something was about to happen to Earth, the other worlds needed to know immediately. High above Earth's atmosphere, Jake Morrison watched the unknown fleet approach. The alien ships were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They were dark, angular things that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Each one was the size of a small city. "Captain, incoming transmission," reported his communications officer. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. It was reptilian, with yellow eyes and scales that shifted color in the light. When it spoke, its voice was cold and filled with contempt. "I am Overlord Kethmore of the Vortak. Empire, we have awakened from our long sleep to find the galaxy polluted with weak species. You humans will serve as an example to all others. Your world dies today." The transmission ended abruptly. Jake stared at the blank screen. "Get me Admiral Brooks immediately." "Sir, the Admiral is already on the line." "Jake, did you receive that transmission?" Brooks' voice was tight with tension. "Yes, sir. What are your orders?" "Defend Earth at all costs. I'm mobilizing every ship we have." Jake looked out at his small fleet. 12 destroyers and 3 cruisers against 47 massive alien dreadnoughts. The math was not good. "All ships. This is Captain Morrison. Battle stations. We're going to give these aliens a fight they won't forget." The human ships moved into defensive positions around Earth. They were vastly outnumbered, but Jake had trained his crews well. If they were going to die today, they would make the enemy pay for every meter of space. The Vortak fleet opened fire first. Beams of energy that burned through space itself lanced out from their ships. The human vessels returned fire with everything they had, their weapons lighting up the darkness between Earth and the moon. Jake's flagship, the destroyer New York, shuddered under enemy fire. "Shields down to 60%, called his tactical officer. "Focus all fire on the lead enemy ship," Jake ordered. "If we're going down, we're taking some of them with us." The battle raged for 2 hours. One by one, the human ships were destroyed. Jake watched his friends and fellow officers die as their vessels exploded in silent flashes of light. But they fought until the end, buying precious time for the evacuation ships fleeing Earth. "Captain, we're the last ship left," reported Zara. The Luna base had been destroyed an hour ago, and now only the New York remained. "Then we make our last shot count," Jake said grimly. He ordered all remaining power to weapons and aimed directly at the largest Vortak ship. The New York's guns fired one final time before an enemy beam cut through her hull. Jake Morrison died, with his ship, but not before his last shot punched through the alien dreadnought's shields. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Park was in an evacuation shuttle when the bombardment began. The Vortak weapons were beyond anything humanity had imagined. They didn't just destroy buildings. They turned entire cities into glass. The heat was so intense that lakes and rivers boiled away in seconds. Lisa watched through the shuttle's small window as Geneva disappeared in a flash of light. Then London, then New York. The aliens were methodically destroying every major population center on the planet. "We have to warn the colonies," she whispered to herself. Using the shuttle's emergency transmitter, she began broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Dr. Lisa Park, Earth representative to the Galactic Council. Earth is under attack by an unknown alien force calling themselves the Vortak Empire. Our defenses have been overwhelmed. Billions are dead. The enemy intends to make an example of humanity." She paused, then added the most important part of her message. "I am activating the endgame protocols. Authorization code, Omega 77 Alpha. God help us all." The codes she transmitted had been embedded in human military computers for over a century. They were designed for one purpose: to be used when humanity faced complete extinction. No human leader had ever wanted to use them, but today there was no choice. Across human space, hidden computers received Lisa's message. Weapon caches that had slept for decades came online. Research facilities that existed only in classified files began broadcasting activation signals. And in the deepest vaults of human military command, protocols that had never been tested began to execute. By the time the Vortak finished destroying Earth, their message to the galaxy was clear, but they had made one critical mistake. They thought that destroying humanity's homeworld would break the human spirit. Instead, they had just unleashed something that had been carefully contained for 200 years. The galaxy was about to learn why some species should never be pushed to the edge of extinction. As the last evacuation ships fled the burning remains of Earth, the codes Dr. Lisa Park had transmitted began to change everything. In colonies and stations across 1,000 star systems, humans who had lived peaceful lives suddenly received new orders. The war was just beginning. Commander Ryan Foster was having lunch with his family on Titan Colony when the emergency broadcast interrupted every screen and speaker in the settlement. His wife grabbed his hand as Dr. Lisa Park's voice filled their dining room, reporting the destruction of Earth and transmitting the endgame protocol codes. Ryan had heard whispers about the protocols during his military training, but most officers believed they were just theoretical plans. Now, as his military communicator began beeping with urgent messages, he realized how wrong they had all been. "Sarah, take the kids to the shelter," he told his wife. "I have to report to command immediately." At Titan Military Command, Ryan found chaos. Officers were running between stations, and every computer screen showed activation sequences that most of them had never seen before. General Matt Rodriguez stood at the center of it all, his face grim as he coordinated the awakening of humanity's hidden arsenal. "Foster, good timing," Rodriguez called out. "We just received confirmation that Earth is gone. Every major city destroyed, 12 billion people dead." Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. "Sir, what are our orders?" "The endgame protocols are now active. That means every peaceful restriction we've operated under for the past 2 centuries has just been lifted." Rodriguez handed him a data pad. "You're now in command of Battle Group 7. Your mission is to secure all military assets in the Outer Rim and prepare for total war." Ryan looked at the data pad and felt his heart skip. Battle Group 7 included ships he didn't even know existed. "Sir, where did these vessels come from?" "They've been waiting in hidden shipyards since humanity first joined the Galactic Confederation. The politicians thought peace would last forever. The military knew better." Across the solar system, Agent Sophie Blake was piloting her stealth reconnaissance ship through the asteroid belt when she received the activation codes. Her ship, the Shadow Walker, was officially listed as a civilian research vessel. In reality, it was one of the most advanced spy ships ever built. Sophie had spent 5 years operating in deep space, mapping alien territories and monitoring potential threats. Her mission had always been classified, but now she understood just how classified. The computer systems that came online after receiving the codes revealed capabilities she had never known her ship possessed. Computer, analyze all Vortok intelligence gathered over the past decade, she commanded. Analysis complete. The Vortak Empire has been planning this campaign for 37 years. Primary objective, elimination of all human colonies. Secondary objective, subjugation of remaining galactic species. Sophie stared at her screens in shock. For 37 years, while humanity had pursued peace and diplomacy, their enemies had been planning genocide. The scope of Vortak preparation was staggering. They had mapped every human world, identified key infrastructure, and planned systematic extermination campaigns. Computer, what other intelligence assets do we have in Vortak space? Activating sleeper network. 47 deep cover operatives coming online across 12 star systems. For the first time since receiving news of Earth's destruction, Sophie smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Dr. Alex Carter was working late in his laboratory when the activation codes reached the Ceres research station. Most of the galaxy knew Ceres as a mining facility, but hidden beneath the asteroid's surface was one of humanity's most secret weapons research centers. Alex had been developing exotic technologies for 15 years, always wondering if his work would ever be used. Projects that violated multiple galactic treaties, weapons that other species would consider crimes against nature. Now, as security protocols lifted and sealed sections of the facility came online, he realized that his life's work was about to be unleashed. Computer, show me the status of Project Ragnarok, he said quietly. The main screen displayed a 3-dimensional model of the most devastating weapon humanity had ever conceived. It was a device that could create artificial black holes, capable of consuming entire star systems. Alex had spent a decade perfecting it, hoping it would never be needed. Project Ragnarok is 94% complete. Estimated time to deployment, 72 hours. Alex nodded grimly. 72 hours to finish building a weapon that could unmake reality itself. He began typing commands, bringing his research team out of their cover assignments. They had work to do. On the commercial station Harmony Point, hundreds of human civilians suddenly received coded messages on their personal communicators. To outside observers, they appeared to be merchants, teachers, artists, and ordinary travelers. In reality, they were part of the most extensive intelligence network in galactic history. Maya Chen owned a popular restaurant that served beings from dozens of species. What her alien customers didn't know was that every conversation in her establishment was recorded and analyzed. For 8 years, she had been gathering intelligence on military movements, political discussions, and economic planning throughout this sector of space. Now, as she read her activation message, Maya began implementing protocols she had hoped never to use. Hidden transmitters in her restaurant activated, sending burst communications to human agents across the galaxy. Supply caches concealed in her building's walls came online, revealing weapons and equipment that could outfit a small army. Computer, initiate Operation Looking Glass, she whispered. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on thousands of worlds. Humans who had lived peaceful lives for decades suddenly revealed themselves as soldiers, spies, and saboteurs. The network that activated was so vast and well hidden that even the Galactic Confederation's intelligence services had no idea it existed. General Rodriguez stood in Titan Command's main war room, watching status reports flow in from across human space. The transformation was remarkable. Within 6 hours of the activation codes being transmitted, humanity had revealed military capabilities that dwarfed anything other species possessed. Sir, we're receiving reports from all sectors, his aide reported. Hidden shipyards are coming online. Weapons stockpiles are being distributed. Intelligence networks are activating across 43 star systems. What about the colonies? Rodriguez asked. Converting to war production is ordered. Every manufacturing facility is being retooled for military purposes. Civilian populations are reporting for military service in unprecedented numbers. Rodriguez nodded. This was what the endgame protocols had been designed for, the complete militarization of human civilization in response to an extinction-level threat. It was a transformation that would have taken other species years to accomplish. Humanity was doing it in days. Sir, incoming transmission from the Galactic Confederation, his communications officer announced. Put it through. The screen showed Ambassador Telvar of the Centauri Republic, current chairman of the Confederation's Security Council. The alien's face was filled with concern. General Rodriguez, the Confederation is monitoring massive military buildup throughout human space. We understand your anger over the attack on Earth, but we urge restraint. A diplomatic solution? Ambassador, Rodriguez interrupted. With respect, Earth is gone. 12 billion of my people are dead. The time for diplomacy ended when the Vortak opened fire. General, surely you understand that escalating this conflict will only lead to more death? You're absolutely right, Rodriguez replied calmly. More death. All of it Vortak. He terminated the connection and turned to his staff. Send a message to all human forces. Operation Payback begins in 72 hours. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when you break the oldest rule in space. As news of the activation spread, species across the galaxy began implementing their own emergency protocols. The older civilizations, those that remembered humanity's violent past, quietly began evacuating their most important worlds. They had seen what humans were capable of when truly unleashed, and they had no desire to be caught in the crossfire. The Vortak had wanted to make an example of humanity. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping for 2 centuries. The galaxy was about to learn why some rules should never be broken. Captain Nina Walsh stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance, watching her crew prepare for their first hunt. The ship itself was a marvel of human engineering that had never officially existed. Built in a hidden shipyard beyond Pluto, it incorporated technology that violated 12 different galactic treaties. Cloaking system online, reported her tactical officer. Quantum torpedoes loaded. Gravity wave generators ready. Nina nodded. The Vengeance was designed for one purpose: to hunt and kill enemy ships without being detected. Unlike the honorable fleet battles that other species preferred, humans had built a ship designed for assassination. Target acquired, announced Lieutenant Ben Torres from his station. Vortak heavy cruiser moving through the Kepler system. No escort vessels. Perfect, Nina said coldly. Let's introduce ourselves. The Vengeance moved through space like a predator stalking prey. Its cloaking field made it invisible to conventional sensors, while its specialized hull absorbed electromagnetic radiation. To the Vortak cruiser, there was nothing there. Nina waited until they were within optimal firing range. All weapons. Target their engine core. I want them disabled, not destroyed. We need information. The attack lasted exactly 14 seconds. Quantum torpedoes punched through the alien ship's shields like they weren't there, while gravity wave generators twisted the vessel's hull into impossible shapes. The Vortak cruiser went dead in space, its crew trapped inside a crippled ship. Boarding parties, you're up, Nina commanded. Lieutenant Torres led the assault team that cut through the alien ship's hull. His soldiers wore armor that enhanced their strength and speed while protecting them from the hostile environment. More importantly, they carried weapons designed to cause maximum psychological impact. The Vortak crew fought bravely, but they had never faced humans in close combat. Torres and his team moved through the ship like machines, systematically capturing key personnel while eliminating resistance. Within an hour, they had control of the vessel and its senior officers. Captain, we have their navigation computer and 3 high-ranking prisoners, Torres reported. Excellent. Bring them back to base. It's time we learned exactly what we're dealing with. Dr. Amy Hughes sat in her new command center on Titan, surrounded by displays showing the locations of every human unit in the galaxy. As humanity's new tactical coordinator, Her job was to turn their scattered forces into a unified war machine. The intelligence flowing in from captured Vortak equipment was disturbing. The enemy had been planning this war for decades, and their forces were larger than anyone had imagined. They possessed over 300 capital ships, along with support fleets that numbered in the thousands. Dr. Hughes, we're receiving reports. From Agent Blake, her communications officer announced. Sophie Blake's face appeared on the main screen. She was transmitting from deep inside Vortak space, using a transmission method that shouldn't have been possible. Amy, I've confirmed our worst fears. The Vortak aren't just planning to destroy human colonies. They intend to eliminate every human in the galaxy, down to the last child. They've already begun attacks on our outer settlements. Amy felt anger burn in her chest. What about their military structure? Highly centralized. If we can eliminate their command structure, their fleet will be paralyzed. I'm transmitting coordinates for their primary command bases. Understood. Keep yourself hidden, Sophie. We're going to need those intelligence reports. Colonel Steve Mason reviewed the mission briefings in his quarters aboard the stealth ship Phantom. His unit, known only as the Ghost Battalion, consisted of humanity's most elite soldiers. They had trained for years to conduct operations that other species would consider impossible. Today's mission was simple in concept but deadly in execution. They were going to infiltrate 3 separate Vortak command centers and eliminate their leadership. Not capture, eliminate. The rules of civilized warfare no longer applied. Colonel, the insertion pods are ready, reported Sergeant Kate Young, his second in command. Remember, people, we're not here to take prisoners. Every Vortak commander who dies sends a message to the rest of their fleet. Make those messages count. The Ghost Battalion launched from their ship in stealth pods designed to penetrate enemy defenses undetected. Each pod contained a single soldier equipped with weapons and equipment that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. Mason's target was Admiral Vektar, commander of the Vortak's 3rd Fleet. Intelligence indicated he was planning the next wave of attacks on human colonies. That planning was about to come to a permanent end. The infiltration took 12 hours. Mason moved through the enemy base like a shadow, avoiding patrols and security systems with skills honed over decades of training. When he finally reached the Admiral's quarters, the alien was reviewing star charts of human space. Admiral Vektar, Mason said quietly as he materialized from his camouflage field. The Vortak spun around, reaching for his weapon. He never made it. For Earth, Mason whispered as the alien fell. Similar scenes played out across Vortak space as the Ghost Battalion struck simultaneously at multiple targets. By dawn, 7 high-ranking Vortak commanders were dead, and their fleets were in chaos. Nina Walsh was reviewing battle reports when her ship's AI chimed with an urgent alert. Captain, we're detecting a large Vortak fleet moving toward the Proxima colony. Estimated arrival, 18 hours. Nina studied the tactical display. Proxima was home to 4 million humans, mostly families of military personnel. If the Vortak reached it, the massacre would be horrific. Helm, set course for Proxima, maximum speed. Ma'am, we're just one ship against an entire fleet, her executive officer pointed out. Nina smiled grimly. Then we'll have to be creative. Vengeance arrived at Proxima 6 hours before the Vortak fleet. Instead of positioning herself to defend the colony, Nina ordered her ship to hide in the system's asteroid field. She had a different plan. When the Vortak arrived, they found the human colony apparently defenseless. Their commander, confident in his superior numbers, divided his fleet to surround the planet and prevent any escape. That was exactly what Nina had been waiting for. All weapons, target the enemy flagship. Full spread, maximum yield. The Vengeance emerged from the asteroid, field like an avenging angel. Her quantum torpedoes struck the Vortak flagship before they even knew she was there. The massive alien ship broke apart in a spectacular explosion that lit up the entire system. New target, the heavy cruiser on our starboard, Nina commanded. Let's see how many we can kill before they know what hit them. For the next hour, the Vengeance played a deadly game of hide-and-seek among the asteroids. Every time the Vortak thought they had located her, she would disappear and strike from a new direction One by one, their ships fell to her superior technology and tactics. By the time Vortak reinforcements arrived, half their fleet was destroyed, and the survivors were in full retreat. Proxima Colony was safe, and the galaxy had witnessed the first major defeat of Vortak forces. Dr. Hughes watched the battle reports flow across her screens with satisfaction. The pattern was becoming clear across dozens of star systems. Human forces, operating with tactics that bordered on the supernatural, were systematically destroying Vortak units wherever they encountered them. But the most satisfying reports came from the intelligence networks. Vortak communications were filled with confusion and fear. They had expected to face a technologically inferior enemy. Instead, they were being hunted by forces that seemed to appear from nowhere and strike without warning. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from Vortak space," her communications officer reported. "It's on all frequencies." The main screen showed a Vortak general, his scales pale with fear. "Human forces, we demand you honor the galactic conventions of warfare. Your tactics violate every treaty." Amy cut off the transmission with a gesture. "Open a channel, all frequencies." Her image appeared on screens across Vortak space. When she spoke, her voice was calm and cold. "You wanted to make an example of humanity. Message received. Now we're making an example of you. There will be no negotiations. There will be no mercy. There will be no survivors." She terminated the transmission and turned back to her tactical displays. The hunt was just beginning. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center of the newly constructed battle station Retribution, watching the final preparations for humanity's largest military operation in their history. 6 months after Earth's destruction, the human war machine had grown beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Kate had been promoted after Admiral Brooks died defending Mars Colony from a Vortak sneak attack. Unlike her predecessor, who had believed in honorable warfare, Kate understood that honor was a luxury humanity could no longer afford. "Admiral, all fleet commanders are ready for the briefing," reported her aide. "Begin transmission." Across human space, dozens of fleet commanders appeared on her screens. These were no longer the peaceful explorers and diplomats who had represented humanity in the Galactic Confederation. These were warriors, forged in 6 months of total war. Ladies and gentlemen, today we begin Operation Cleansing Fire. Our objective is simple: the complete elimination of Vortak civilization. No prisoners, no mercy, no survivors. Commander Ryan Foster, now leading the Third Fleet, nodded grimly from his flagship. "Admiral, what about the galactic treaties regarding planetary bombardment?" Kate's expression didn't change. "Commander, the treaties died with Earth. We're no longer bound by rules written by species who couldn't protect themselves from extinction." Major Luke Peterson was reviewing the invasion plans for Vortak Prime when the transmission reached his command ship. As the leader of the 1st Assault Division, his job was to lead the ground invasion of the enemy homeworld. "Major, are you certain about these tactics?" asked his executive officer, Captain Diana Ross. "Orbital bombardment followed by poison gas deployment." "Sir, this goes against everything we've ever believed about warfare." Luke looked at her coldly. "Captain, everything we believed about warfare got 12 billion humans killed. We're not here to be noble. We're here to win." The assault plans he was reviewing would have horrified his former self. Biological weapons designed to target Vortak physiology specifically. Atmospheric processors that would render their worlds uninhabitable. Weapons that turned the very air into poison. "The Vortak wanted to make an example of us," Luke continued. "We're going to make sure that example teaches the galaxy exactly what happens when you commit genocide against humanity." Dr. Chloe Anderson worked around the clock in her laboratory, making final adjustments to Project Ragnarok. The weapon that had once been theoretical was now ready for deployment. In 3 days, humanity would demonstrate the power to unmake reality itself. "Dr. Anderson, the targeting systems are online," reported her assistant. "We can deploy the weapon anywhere in Vortak space within 6 hours. Chloe stared at the readings on her screen. The artificial black hole generator was functioning perfectly. When activated, it would create a gravitational anomaly that would consume everything within a light-year radius. Planets, stars, space. stations. Everything would be pulled into an event horizon and cease to exist. "Have we selected the first target?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. The HFY system. It's the industrial heart of the Vortak Empire. 17 billion inhabitants." Chloe felt a moment of doubt. 17 billion lives would end when she activated her weapon. Then she remembered the images of Earth burning, and her resolve hardened. Begin. The countdown. In 72 hours, the HFY system will no longer exist. Captain Troy Mitchell piloted the experimental warship Apocalypse through hyperspace toward his first target. His ship was humanity's first operational planet killer, equipped with weapons that could destroy worlds at the quantum level. Unlike traditional planet crackers that simply broke worlds apart, the Apocalypse's quantum disruptors could unmake planets entirely. The target world wouldn't just be destroyed, it would cease to have ever existed, erased from reality at the subatomic level. "Captain, we're approaching the Zorvak system," reported his navigator. "Enemy planet dead ahead." Troy studied the tactical display. Zorvak 3 was a Vortak military world, home to their primary weapons manufacturing facilities. 2 billion Vortak lived and worked there, producing the weapons that had killed humans across the galaxy. "Weapons, prepare the quantum disruptors. Full power." "Sir, are we really going to erase an entire planet?" asked his weapons officer, Lieutenant Carlos Santos. Troy's voice was steady. "Lieutenant, that planet produces the weapons that kill human children. Today it stops existing." The Apocalypse dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zorvak system. The planet appeared on their screens, a gray world covered with industrial complexes and military installations. "Quantum disruptors charged and ready," Santos reported. "Fire." The beam that lanced out from the Apocalypse was invisible to the naked eye, but its effects were immediate. The planet simply stopped. For a moment, it continued to orbit its star. Then reality caught up with what had happened, and Zorvak 3 ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not broken apart, simply gone, as if it had never been there at all. "Target eliminated," Santos whispered. "Set course for the next target," Troy ordered. "We have 6 more worlds to erase today." Admiral Sullivan watched the operation reports flow across her screens with grim satisfaction. Human forces were advancing on all fronts, using tactics that no other species had ever imagined. Fleet Admiral Foster's 3rd Fleet had cornered a Vortak battle group near the Rigel system, and was systematically destroying them with weapons that violated the fundamental laws of physics. His ships fired projectiles that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making conventional shields useless. Major Peterson's ground forces had landed on 3 Vortak worlds, and were advancing with the support of atmospheric processors that turned the air itself into a weapon. Vortak soldiers were dying not from bullets or explosions, but from breathing air that had been engineered to be lethal to their species. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Galactic Confederation," her communications officer announced. "Put it through." The screen showed Ambassador Telvar, but this time he wasn't alone. Representatives from dozens of species filled the transmission, all looking terrified. "Admiral Sullivan, on behalf of the Galactic Confederation, we demand that you cease these atrocities immediately. Your weapons violate every law of civilized warfare." Kate studied their faces calmly. "Ambassador, where was the Galactic Confederation when the Vortak were committing genocide against humanity? Where were your laws when Earth was burning?" "Admiral, please understand we cannot allow these weapons to exist. They threaten the stability of the entire galaxy." "The galaxy should have thought about stability before it allowed the Vortak to destroy our homeworld," Kate replied. "As of today, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Confederation. We no longer recognize your authority or your laws." She terminated the transmission and turned to her staff. "Send a message to all human forces. Any ship attempting to interfere with our operations is to be considered hostile. No warnings, no negotiations." Dr. Anderson stood in the observation deck of her research station, watching the countdown timer approach 0. In 30 seconds, humanity would deploy its most devastating weapon for the first time. "All systems green," reported her technician. Artificial black hole generator ready for activation. Chloe thought about the 17 billion Vortok who were about to die. Then she thought about the 12 billion humans who had already died, and her finger moved to the activation switch. For Earth, she whispered, and pressed the button. Light years away, the HFY system was going about its daily routine when reality suddenly twisted. A point of absolute darkness appeared near the system's star, growing rapidly as it consumed everything around it. Planets, moons, space stations, the star itself, all were pulled into the artificial black hole that humanity had created. Within 6 hours, the entire HFY system had vanished, leaving only empty space where 17 billion lives had once existed. News of the system's destruction spread through Vortok space like wildfire. For the first time since the war began, the aliens understood what they were truly facing. Humanity hadn't just developed superior weapons, they had abandoned every restraint that civilized beings imposed on themselves. On Vortok Prime, Overlord Kethmore stared at the reports in disbelief. An entire star system had simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed in battle, not conquered. Erased from reality as if it had never been. "My lord, our fleets are requesting permission to withdraw," reported his aide. "Withdraw? We are the Vortok Empire. We do not withdraw from inferior species." But even as he spoke, Kethmore felt fear creeping into his hearts. The humans weren't fighting like any species he had ever encountered. They fought like beings who had nothing left to lose, using weapons that defied comprehension. His aide's voice was shaking. "My lord, we're receiving reports that human forces are using biological weapons specifically designed to target our physiology. They're not trying to conquer our worlds. They're trying to exterminate us." For the first time in his long life, Overlord Kethmore began to understand the magnitude of his mistake. The galaxy's oldest rule existed for a reason. Some species, when pushed to the brink of extinction, didn't just fight back. They made sure their enemies served as warnings to anyone else who might make the same mistake. President Ellen Shaw stood in the Memorial Garden of New Geneva Station, watching representatives from across the galaxy place flowers at the monuments dedicated to Earth's destroyed cities. 18 months had passed since the Vortok made their fatal mistake, and the galaxy was still learning to live with the consequences. Ellen had been elected president of the newly formed human collective 3 months ago, governing from the massive space station built from the wreckage of Vortok dreadnoughts. The station orbited where Earth once had been, a constant reminder of what humanity had lost and what they had become. "Madam President, General Webb is ready for the final briefing," her aide announced. Ellen nodded and walked to the command center, passing through corridors lined with displays showing the current state of human space. The transformation was remarkable. In 18 months, humanity had built an empire that spanned half the galaxy, all of it constructed on the ruins of their enemies. General Marcus Webb stood before a massive holographic display showing the former Vortok Empire. Red zones marked areas where human weapons had made worlds uninhabitable. Black zones marked systems that no longer existed at all. "Madam President, I'm pleased to report that the last Vortok resistance cell was eliminated yesterday. The Vortok Empire has ceased to exist." Ellen studied the display. Where once there had been over 300 inhabited Vortok worlds, now there were none. Some had been conquered and repopulated by humans. Others had been rendered uninhabitable by biological weapons. Many had simply been erased from existence. "What about their homeworld?" she asked. "Vortok Prime was the test site for our first planetary-scale black hole weapon. The entire system was consumed 6 months ago. There's nothing left but empty space." Ellen nodded. It was fitting that the world that had produced Overlord Kethmore should be the one to demonstrate humanity's ultimate power. The artificial black hole still existed where Vortok Prime had been, a permanent monument to the price of genocide. Dr. Sam Wright was working in his office when Ellen arrived for their weekly meeting. As the chief architect of the new galactic order, Sam was responsible for designing the political structure that would prevent another war like the one that had just ended. "Sam, show me the latest status reports," Ellen said. Sam activated his holographic display, showing the current state of the galaxy. Human military bases now existed in every major star system, each one a reminder of humanity's reach and power. The new protocols are being implemented across all member species, Sam reported. The Never Again monitoring system is operational, and we're receiving real-time data on military movements throughout the galaxy. Ellen studied the information flowing across the screens. Every ship movement, every weapon deployment, every military communication in galactic space was now monitored by human intelligence systems. It was the most comprehensive surveillance network in history. What about resistance to the new order? Minimal. Most species understand that cooperation is preferable to the alternative. The Centauri Republic initially protested our monitoring of their space, but they withdrew their objections after we reminded them what happened to the last species that opposed us. Ambassador Grace Turner was preparing for her address to the Reformed Galactic Assembly when she received the final casualty reports from the war. The numbers were staggering, even by galactic standards. The Vortok Empire, which had once numbered over 200 billion souls, no longer existed. Every member of their species was dead, their worlds either destroyed or transformed beyond recognition. It was the most complete extinction in recorded galactic history. But the Vortok weren't the only casualties. Human losses had been severe as well. Earth's destruction had claimed 12 billion lives, and the fighting that followed had cost millions more. The war had transformed both species, though only one had survived. Grace reviewed her speech one final time. Today, she would present the galaxy with humanity's terms for lasting peace, terms that would ensure no species ever again face the choice between extinction and total war. The Reformed Galactic Assembly met in the Hall of Remembrance on New Geneva Station. Representatives from over 400 species filled the chamber, all of them aware that they were witnessing the birth of a new era. Grace stood at the podium, looking out at faces that showed fear, respect, and resignation in equal measure. These beings had watched humanity tear apart the galaxy's oldest empire in less than 2 years. They understood that the rules had changed forever. Fellow sentients, she began. 18 months ago, the Vortok Empire broke the galaxy's oldest and most sacred rule. They attempted to commit genocide against humanity. Today we gather to ensure that such an atrocity never happens again. The chamber was completely silent. Even the normally talkative Rigelian delegates sat quietly, their attention focused entirely on Grace's words. The human collective hereby establishes the Never Again protocols. These protocols are simple. No species will ever again attempt to exterminate another species. No homeworld will ever again be attacked. No genocide will ever again be tolerated. Ambassador Telvar of the Centauri Republic raised his hand. Ambassador Turner, what authority does humanity claim to enforce these protocols? Grace's expression didn't change. The authority of superior firepower, Ambassador. The authority of species that has demonstrated its willingness to use that firepower. The authority of the only civilization in this galaxy that has successfully prevented its own extinction. She gestured to the viewports that showed the memorial monuments floating in space where Earth had once been. We are the species that rebuilt from nothing. We are the species that turned our greatest defeat into our ultimate victory. We are the species that erased our enemies so completely that future generations will debate whether they ever existed at all. The chamber remained silent. Grace continued. The galaxy has seen what happens when humanity is pushed to the edge of extinction. We became something that your species cannot comprehend or resist. We developed weapons that unmake reality itself. We abandoned every moral restraint that you consider necessary for civilization. She paused, letting her words sink in. We did this because we had no choice, because the alternative was the complete extinction of our species. But now we offer you a different choice. Accept the Never Again protocols, submit to our monitoring, and live in peace. Or reject our terms and discover what it feels like to face the full fury of an aroused humanity. President Shaw watched the assembly from her office, monitoring the reactions of various species to Grace's speech. Most were nodding in agreement, understanding that they had no real choice in the matter. A few species showed signs of resistance, but they were quickly silenced by their neighbors. Madam President, we're receiving acceptance confirmations from all major species, her communications officer reported. The protocols are being ratified across the galaxy. Ellen nodded. It had taken the complete destruction of one empire to convince the galaxy that some rules were absolute, but the lesson had finally been learned. What about the memorial? She asked. Construction is proceeding on schedule. The monument will be completed in 6 months. Ellen smiled. The memorial would be built in the exact spot where Earth had orbited, a massive structure that would serve as both a tribute to the dead and a warning to the living. Every being in the galaxy would know what it represented, the price of breaking humanity's trust. General Webb stood in the newly constructed Strategic Command Center, reviewing the deployment of human forces across the galaxy. The military bases that now dotted known space weren't just defensive installations. They were reminders of humanity's reach and power. General, all monitoring stations are reporting normal activity, his aide reported. No signs of military buildup or aggressive movement by any species. Good. How are the new recruits performing? Excellently, sir. The children who survived Earth's destruction are showing remarkable aptitude for military service. They'll make excellent officers. Webb nodded grimly. The generation that had witnessed their homeworld's destruction would never forget the lesson it taught. They would ensure that humanity never again faced an existential threat unprepared. Sir, incoming message from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. We're detecting an unknown signal from outside the galaxy. Webb's expression sharpened. Unknown how? The signal appears to be artificial, but it's unlike anything in our databases. It could be another species attempting to make contact. Webb considered this. The galaxy had just learned what happened to species that threatened humanity. Perhaps it was time for the universe to learn the same lesson. Begin deep space reconnaissance. If there are other civilizations out there, they need to understand the new rules before they make the same mistake the Vortok did. President Shaw stood once again in the memorial garden, but this time she wasn't alone. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy had come to pay their respects to Earth's dead. They came not just out of respect, but out of understanding. The galaxy had learned its oldest rule for a reason. Some species, when faced with extinction, didn't just fight for survival. They fought to ensure that their enemies served as eternal warnings to anyone else who might test their resolve. Ellen looked up at the stars, knowing that human ships patrolled the